Now, it's been a while since I've done a type of video like this, and I just want to see where interest is at. So if you guys don't mind helping me out, I'd really appreciate it. I'd just like for you to tell me in the comment section below which Chanel men's fragrance is your current favorite from the current lineup. Again, I really want to know, and I can't wait for you guys to find out where I stand on this topic too. Hey forum, my name is Manny, aka CascadeScents, and if you are at all interested in perfumes, colognes, fragrances in general, well, I think this might be the channel for you. I'm not a fragrance expert, more like a fragrance enthusiast, and if you also like discussing fragrances, well, I think you'll especially like this one. Of course, this is a tier list video, that's today's topic on Chanel men's fragrances, but with that being said, and a friendly reminder as always, 500 likes, and a random one of you subscribers in the comment section below will have your comment pinned to the top, as you'll be the lucky recipient of an assorted niche fragrance sample pack. So as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. But with that being said, we do have a lot to get through here. We have a list of the current crop of Chanel's men's fragrances that are currently active in the US of A. So I know there are some regional exclusives outside of this, like Pour Monsieur Eau de Toilette, for example, but I'm trying to do something that's a little bit more catch-all. So we might as well get to it, starting with Pour Monsieur Eau de Parfum. We're gonna work backwards because that's how I always work here. And of course, this is a flanker to the OG Pour Monsieur Eau de Toilette, the very first men's Chanel's fragrance back in, I believe, 55. This one's still lemony, it's still chypre with its reliance on more aromatic elements, of course, stuff of green and woody nature thrown in as well. But to modernize this fragrance, they used a little bit of nutmeg, some vanilla as well too, and overall I think Pour Monsieur Eau de Parfum really flows together well. However, with that being said, it's still not a niche that I'm willing to fill because I couldn't see myself reach for this daily. I just feel like if you're in that small minority that might have come up on stuff like Pour Monsieur, this is kind of like a modernized version for you. And since I think they did a good job on that for those people, I'm going to give this Pour Monsieur Eau de Parfum a B. Moving on now to historically my favorite Chanel men's fragrance, and that's Platinum Égoïste, of course. This, of course, has nothing to do with the initial Égoïste. It's just kind of using that similar marketing as far as this egoist, I guess, man who's driven in the world, but here in a more steely kind of get shit done kind of vibe. And I just think it smells exquisite. You have some aromatic elements, some spicy, some floral elements kind of thrown in together that overall gives it, again, that metallic vibe. Very appropriate for work, very work safe kind of stuff, but one you don't want to overspray for the office because it kind of might come off too sharp. And I found that even with its reformulated nature now, I still feel like it's still somewhat potent enough to get me through a 6 to 8 hour workday, which I really appreciate. So for the most part, since it's still what I would use it for to this day, I'm also going to give Platinum Égoïste an S tier. So damn, it didn't take that long to get my first S tier out of the way. Let's see how Égoïste does now. Égoïste, of course, Platinum Égoïste's older brother. I'd say that Platinum Égoïste, if anything, is the adopted brother because they smell nothing alike. So of course, there's some early abuse of flankerdom right there with something newer that doesn't have anything to do with the initial, but you guys want to kind of have that marketing to do with each other because it'd be easier to sell the latter and maybe the prior. Of course, I was a young ass kid when Égoïste was in its heyday, so I don't know about how popular this stuff was, but what it does smell like to me is kind of like an early to middle-aged kind of guy, to middle-aged kind of guy that is kind of sophisticated, you know, someone who does something white collar or might own his business, someone like that. But to be honest, if I'm that guy, I'm moving on to something else because I think this one right here is not as potent as it once was for sure. Like, it just doesn't feel as full-bodied, which I think is paramount for a warmer type of scent. Like, if you're going to do something that's a cozy sandalwood type of vibe that's driven by spices, I really want to feel that emitting off of my skin, and I just don't feel like I'm getting that after a couple hours here, so that's not good. I can't really recall what the specific longevity was, but honestly, it just feels like a shell of its former self. So I'm going to give Égoïste a D tier. I'm not giving it a D tier because it smells dated or anything. Again, I gave Pour Monsieur Eau de Parfum a B tier, and despite that fragrance being modernized, it still smells more dated than Égoïste to me. Égoïste just smells kind of depleted now, that's all. But now moving on to something new, something really new, in Bleu de Chanel Parfum. So we're getting into this Bleu de Chanel family now. Parfum version, of course, is a more deep waters-ish version of the initial grapefruity, watery Bleu de Chanel vibe. And like, you have some good storytelling too, even just as subtle as that text right there and how it's more bronzed out, so to indicate something that's a little deeper, I guess. But maybe it's just me, or maybe I've been sniffing some Dior Homme Parfum a little too much lately, but when I see the word Eau de Parfum or just pure perfume or just Parfum, I'm just going to presume that's also stronger. Maybe the Parfum version is a little bit more successful in the longevity department for some people. However, it's not projecting more though, and that's kind of an issue to me, especially considering the price. We're talking a 50 ml for 120 USD, which is the same price for a 100 ml eau de parfum. Like, I just think that's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. But you know what? Despite how good it smells, it's just the valuation I really can't get behind. That's why I'm going to give the Parfum a C tier. Moving on to my historically favorite Bleu de Chanel though, in the initial OG EDT Eau de Toilette version. This does what a blue fragrance to me is kind of supposed to do. You have something for the most part that's going to last you your day, but I need that vibrant ass opening. Come on, man. And of course the Eau de Toilette has it right here, and how nice and crisp and sweet and just beautiful that grapefruit is. Like, I want to drink that shit when I smell it. Just saying. Properly disperses off my skin too, so you know what, of course that is technically the projection cloud, which I actually do get kind of noticed with, which is also a plus to a certain extent, especially for this kind of DNA. But for the most part, I like it the most, and that's why I really appreciate the scent, especially for its value in comparison to the other Bleu de Chanel. So you know what, EDT gets an A tier. And last but not least, now for the Bleu de Chanels, we have the Eau de Parfum version, and this concentration's good too. What can I say? You have a lot of the traits there in the Eau de Toilette, with its incensey, watery, ambery dry down, less reliant on grapefruit and more reliant on this deep waters, woody type of vibe. It definitely leans in between the Eau de Toilette and the Parfum, so for what it's worth, that's kind of cool. And honestly, I used to have this gripe with its evaluation in the form of it being a little too much for me as far as not getting enough out of it as far as the performance. Like, if I'm going to spend $25 extra on it, I want it to perform a little bit better and or, you know, just be higher quality, which I don't think is that much higher quality. Yeah, I mean, I guess it smells more refined, but at the end of the day, it's also just a standard designer fragrance to me. Like, I'm not trying to find something that's totally art per se. I'll just go to niche for that. But you know what, objectively speaking, I can't say that it's not as good as the EDT, if not better. So you know what, EDP also gets an A tier. Still like the EDT more for its opening because it's more vibrant there, but again, hard to ignore the EDP as well. Moving on, now we have Antaeus, and good lord, this one's a powerhouse. Antaeus, definitely not for me. It's that classic powerhouse 80s animalic, woody, aromatic bomb. Bit of rose, bit of patch, comes off as kind of dry as well. Just a big, dry 80s style scent, which is again not for me. But again, it is cool how Chanel pays homage to the OGs by continuing to release them, despite them being reformulated and whatnot. But I still think it's a good scent. I'm going to give Antaeus a C tier. I feel like there would be quite some uproar if that one were to go, which would be sad. But last but not least, we have the Allure Homme line of fragrances, starting off with some of the Allure Homme spores. We have Allure Homme Spore Eau Extrême, and out of the three AHSs specifically, I do think that this is the best one. Like, they made that aldehydic mandarin sweet citrus type of scent a little bit more contemporary with just upping that tonka. Definitely feels like an all-rounder type of fragrance if I want something that does come off as sporty, but something that I kind of want to cut through some cold weather with. Like, I feel like I can reach for this as early as maybe mild spring day, and as late in the year as maybe a warm fall day. I mean, my Canadian winter, if I want to wear something warmer, then I'll just reach for a bona fide warmer type of fragrance. But yeah, for something that I think does a good job of covering half the year, really can't hate on Allure Homme Spore Eau Extrême. But I'm still not as likely to reach for this as I would maybe a Bleu de Chanel or Bleu de Chanel flanker, so that's why it gets a B tier. Now moving on, we have Allure Homme Spore Cologne, and this is one that always gets brought up in my conversations about perfume with fellow creators and just fellow users in general of perfume, but for whatever reason, none of us own this one. It's legit the nicest, most talked about perfume that no one actually owns, at least in my experience of talking about it. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out why no one's trying to rock this one. I guess at the end of the day, it does perform like a gym scent, which makes sense. It's called Allure Homme Spore Cologne, but the thing is, people don't want to spend $95 for a gym scent to a certain extent. To those of you who have no problem shelling out that cash for something that is rather effervescent for 1 or 2 hours, hey, that's cool, fair play to you. I mean, I'm like that to a certain extent as well, so I do see the beauty in having this kind of scent. But in this price range, I'm kind of leaning towards certain Acqua di Parmas, if not some Atelier colognes. So I'm still going to give Allure Homme Spore Cologne a C tier. It's a really nice fragrance that is more citrusy driven in comparison to the OG or Eau Extrême. I just think it's in a weird spot, and for the fresher offerings on this list, I think it's the one that's in the weirdest of spots. That being said, up next we have the OG Allure Homme Spore. Again, sweet, aldehydic, also driven by tonka to a certain extent. It's just a nice all-rounder of a fragrance. That being said, it's also reformulated for the worse, but it's not completely a shell of itself. But at this point, if I want an all-rounder crowd pleaser, I want something, to be honest, that could actually be dressed up a little bit more. I feel like the Bleu de Chanel line is easier to dress up in 2019, if you ask me. This one feels a little bit too casual, which is fine if that's what I want, but I don't think it's remotely what I want right now. So you know what? I'm going to give the still nice Allure Homme Spore a C tier. Again, still smells super good, and I have to respect it a lot for kind of basically catapulting the Allure Homme line into further more prominence, because it's definitely a fragrance I remember a lot of people rocking back in the day, but right now I kind of just see it as that old veteran that's still in the league somehow. But we're going to move on out of the Allure Homme Spores to a different Allure Homme in Édition Blanche, and if you've been watching this channel long, you'd know that this is historically my favorite Allure Homme fragrance. Like, for real though, it's kind of awesome. You have something here that is kind of like a summer gourmand. Like, you have notes of vanilla, some lemon, and just so good. It's mouthwatering. And to keep it from going too gourmand, you also have some pink pepper in there, some vetiver, so it still smells like a traditional cologne, but again, one that you still want to bite into, so you gotta respect it for that. Daytime wise, I feel like I can reach for this for anything and it will just work. Just a nice, pretty, elegant kind of scent that's great for the summer. So what can I say? I feel like that's definitely what they are trying to channel in the marketing for the scent. The scent responds by how good it is. So you know what, I gotta give this stuff an S tier. Sometimes though, I still feel like it's criminally one of the least properly marketed fragrances too, because of how good I think this stuff is. Like, sometimes I wish they put a face to that campaign, kind of like Gaspard Ulliel for the Bleu de Chanel fragrances. Whatever can get that stuff to sell, because I feel like anytime I've introduced anyone to that scent, they instantly love it. But it's almost an afterthought, I guess, when they see it in the shelf, which is, again, kind of unfortunate. And speaking of unfortunate, now we're going to close out with Allure Homme, the OG. Kind of a shell of itself in comparison to what it was back then, which makes sense as far as reformulations, because if something's going to be the most reformulated, it's probably going to be the one that's been around the longest. But I mean, it still smells nice as far as something that's all sweet, spicy, and woody with a brighter opening. That brighter opening gives it some kind of contemporary value. Like, I feel like when they dropped this, they kind of wanted Égoïste users to kind of graduate to a scent like this. And what can I say? I think it did kind of succeed, because the Allure Homme line was kind of ubiquitous to a certain extent at a time. Now, of course, we've moved on to the Bleu de Chanel's and Blue fragrances of the world in general. So this one's just kind of lost, to be honest. And again, with its reformulated nature, which isn't as potent anymore, this stuff is kind of a skin scent on me the last time I checked, so that's no good. I kind of have to take points off this one for that. As a result, D tier for the OG Allure Homme. So yeah, hopefully you're not triggered by that or this list in general, but I think that about does it for this list. I had a lot of fun compiling it, so thank you for pulling up. And again, if you also want to check out some of the previous tier lists, please do so too. But yeah, it's that time of the video. If you've yet to tell me which one is your favorite, I'd love to know in the comment section below. That, and of course, if you also want to be eligible for the giveaway, please like and subscribe as well. But yeah, until next time, Forum, thank you again for the love and ongoing support. Take care for now. Peace out. Bye. Wear your fragrances.